ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. This is Judge Richard Weinberg. With me in the studio is Curtis Sliwa, the founder of the famous Guardian Angels of international fame, a great leader in America, a fighter for truth, justice, the American way, public safety, and the number one broadcaster on WABC AM. And he's joined by my co-host, my good friend, esteemed colleague, Jesse Garcia. Jesse is the vice chair of the state Republican Party and the county chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. Gentlemen, as we walk into the studio today, we have breaking news. And the breaking news is that Hunter Biden, son of the president, facing 9 counts of tax evasion and false filings in the United States District Court in Los Angeles, has now indicated that he's pleading an Alford plea, which I'll explain in a minute, an Alford plea. And the question is whether the judge will accept that Alford plea as an admission that he was taking responsibility for his bad conduct. Now, people ask me, what is an Alford plea? An Alford plea is a plea where you don't specifically allocute as to the wrongdoing that you've done, saying on such and such day I failed to file an income tax, on such and such day I hid money, on such and such day I laundered money. It has the same effect as a guilty plea, and a judge can enter sentence based on that. Now, why would a defendant take an Alford plea? To avoid a trial and all the evidence that will come out, a conviction on more serious crimes, and possibility of a harsher penalty. Now, that's the legal reasons for taking an Alford plea. I'll give you my take politically, then I'll turn it over to you two gentlemen. In my opinion, the reason they're doing the Alford plea is that the Democratic Party got to Hunter Biden and to Joe Biden, because all the evidence of influence peddling by the Biden family would come out as evidence. So even though there was no indictment with respect to being a foreign agent and being unregistered, all the transactions with the Ukrainian government, with the Russian government, taking money from the mayor of Moscow's widow, taking money from China and corrupt deals with the Chinese government, which raises questions about whether the White House itself was tainted. All of that evidence would have come out at a trial. And they're trying to close this down because they're trying to prevent more embarrassment for the Biden family and Joe himself, as well as to protect Harris, because she is in the White House after all. She's the one who verified that the man was up to the job and was capable of the job, both intellectually and morally. Curtis, what do you say?
Well, not having the understanding of the law as you, Judge, or even the chairman from Suffolk County, I would have thought it was an Alfred E. Newman, a Mad Magazine plea. What me worry? You know, I'm going to get pardoned. My dad's still in office. Maybe if I cop a plea now, before he's out on January 20th, he can issue a pardon or a commutation.
Well, that's funny you should say that, Curtis, because Biden has said that he's not going to give the kid a pardon. Jesse, what are your thoughts about this situation?
Well, number one, I think that something of this magnitude, everything needs to be aired in court. He needs to admit, just like every other citizen, the wrongdoings he did as part of his plea deal. But to your point, I think what this now sets, and this is bad news for Kamala Harris, is the whole discussion is going to be for the next 60 days, if not for the next 90 days, for the end of the year. Is he or is he not going to pardon his son? We've already seen him go back on his word multiple times, the president. So why should we think that he's not going to go back on this word when there's no drawback to him whatsoever? We know that the reason he does not want to do the what's the name of that the specific plea? Your Honor?
Alford, ALFORD.
Exactly. For him not to do that is because they don't want to further, and this trial to be ended, because they do not want to further embarrass the legacy and identify the millions of dollars that was, siphoned off to Hunter Biden by foreign powers, foreign companies during the time of Joe Biden's vice presidency in the Obama administration. It'll prove beyond a shadow of a doubt what has gone on. I think that it's got to come forward. I think transparency and sunshine is the best disinfectant. The Bidens should put this behind them. They have tactfully decided that this is the best way to do it, to save the family legacy from an open court. Now they're going to have to try and fight on this plea deal. If I'm Donald Trump, or if I'm his surrogate, or if I'm this,
Jesse, you're breaking up.
Come out right now and say there needs to be this open admission of the crimes in court. It's the only way to validate the fairness of the Department of Justice.
Well, let me point out a couple of things. Number one, the U.S. District Court judge, just like I was when I was on Supreme Court, is not obligated to take an Alford plea.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, I think it raises an even more serious question, gentlemen, which is this vice president is running on being part of the administration. She was the last one in the room. She was a confidant. She talked to Joe Biden every day. He was fit for office, both intellectually and morally. The question becomes, as they said in the old days of Watergate, what did she know and when did she know it and what did she do about it? Did she know that there was this corruption going on and just look the other way because it was in her political career interest? Or was she so obtuse that the warnings that, and now the real serious questions about what the FBI told Joe Biden about his son, about the warnings. If I'm the vice president of the United States, which of course I never would be, but if I'm the vice president of the United States and either you gentlemen is the president, and I know that there are warnings going on from the FBI and law enforcement about corrupt action of my son, I would run in there and say, what are you doing? You have to stop this. You have to stop it immediately. You have to cooperate with law enforcement because that's the right thing to do legally and morally. So was she a willing accomplice to looking the other way? The same way she was a willing accomplice when she kept saying that, he's perfectly fit for office. He's sharp as ever, better than ever. And she knew failing her obligations on the 25th Amendment to protect this country against somebody had lost his marbles. Curtis, what do you say?
Well, I think it's clear that she was always kept on the outside. The Biden family had pretty much circled the wagons. And as vice president, most vice presidents are pretty much kept outside of the loop, although she pretended as if she was inside and she was a shot caller, too. She's hoping this all blows over. Ultimately, to the average voter who walks into a voting booth who's going to make a decision, the independent voters, because most of the Democrats and Republicans have made up their mind, it's really going to be about the prices of the items that you pay, the price of a gallon of gasoline, the things that affect their daily lives. I think for the average person, this is all beyond them. They're sort of like, the Bidens are out. Yeah, it's a corrupt family. Who cares? For those, the cognoscenti, they're going to care a lot. But I really don't think it'll impact the election in any way.
Well, see, this is my problem. If they had corrupt money flowing from China, and China is our number one adversary, were they so compromised and all the bad decisions they've made about China, and China gobbling up the world and having all this infiltration into America, were the Bidens looking the other way because they were bought and paid for? That's a serious question. I don't know the answer to that, but there should be a real clear discussion on that issue because they may have compromised the presidency of the United States.
Well, I would have looked at what Garland has just said on the Russian disinformation tip again, whereas we realized that was the flavor of 2016. Now it's all Chinese interference.
But they're not going after the Chinese, Curtis.
No, they're not. And obviously they're a preferred nation in the Biden household because of the amount of business that they dealt with mainland Chinese businesses. That's an understood.
Jesse, what are your thoughts on this?
I think Curtis is spot on. I think that, as Curtis has pointed out, I think he's right. Most Republicans and Democrats have already made a decision on who they're voting for in this election. We've seen both political parties with intensity, and the Republican Party not losing its intensity in this race. However, it's going to come down to 7 states, and it's going to come down to the independents, unaffiliated blank voters in those states. I believe that, like what Curtis said, they're going to look at what the price of eggs, price of groceries, price of gas, price of school supplies, the price of daily life going up, and that's going to make their decision. However, for those unaffiliated voters that may have an issue with the Donald Trump and tweeting or the way, the manner, in the plain speak that Donald Trump undertakes his campaigns and his daily life, that this is going to push them to their side, because one of the things that we don't stand for is unfairness. We want to make sure that those scales of justice are fair for everyone. The laborer that works to pave our roads or to fix our parks or to build our docks, and also the heads of government and the heads of industry. We want to make sure it's fair. And this demonstrates that if they do anything different, that the Democrats, the elitists, the coastal Democrats that try to run this country for their power, their influence, and their greed are going to win out. I mean, in the Justice Department's manual, Department of Justice prosecutors cannot take what Alford plea except in the most unusual circumstances. Now, that boxes in the special prosecutor, boxes in the Justice Department. What is except in most unusual circumstances? That he's the president's son? This goes right to national security, our domestic security, and fairness and lawfare. So I believe that this is going to be a bit of a problem. And that's why I believe that Donald Trump should come out right away and say that the Alford plea should not be accepted. And let's see what Kamala does. She plays, the Me Too game on the campaign, on their policies since she's been nominated or, stabbed Joe Biden in the back. So I'm sure she'll do a Me Too type of tact on this. But they've also demonstrated is that they don't really care about Joe Biden. They took away his presidency. They took away his nomination for the good of the influence, power, and greed of Democrat power brokers and elitists, and they'll do it again.
Now, let me ask you a question, Judge. Going way back to Al Capone, they couldn't get him on any of his criminal acts, but they got him on not paying rent. Right. Does the government of the United States take the attitude is we don't really care how you made your money, but just the fact that you didn't pay your taxes, so we're coming after you, and they won't actually report whatever they've found in terms of how you raised your revenue to other agencies that might actually prosecute you criminally for things that were illegal in nature that got you to the point where you made money and then you didn't pay your taxes?
Well, let me answer it this way. It's a circumspect answer, but let me tell you this.
Yes.
You know the game that the Democratic politicians and the lawfare advocates have done? They've unleashed local prosecutors against Trump. So what stops a state prosecutor from saying that Hunter Biden didn't pay his state taxes or his local taxes? This plea does not insulate him from a zealous local prosecutor or state prosecutor from doing that. The problem, of course, is you're talking about the state of California, and they're so left-wing and progressive, they're in the tank. So I don't expect that to happen. But maybe there's something that went on in some other jurisdiction where Hunter Biden did business, where he has an exposure to paying taxes on a local level, and they can do that. I don't know that there is, and I don't even think that there is, but you can't rule it out. What I want to say about this to you two gentlemen and to our audience is I feel very badly for Hunter Biden on one level and not badly at all for Hunter Biden on another. Clearly, the kid has suffered from alcohol abuse, self-destructive behavior. He's supposed to be a reformed alcoholic and drug addict, and I commend him for that, and I'm happy for him. And I don't want to see the kid persecuted and prosecuted just to get a political result because people don't like Joe Biden. And that's how I feel about that. On the other hand, I don't believe there should be a double standard, as Curtis and Jesse have pointed out. There shouldn't be a double standard. People have to be held accountable for their bad acts, for their criminal conduct. And just because he happens to be the president's son, he shouldn't be getting a free ride. So let me close out this session by saying to you that the judge does not have to accept this plea. He does not have to accept this plea. He can say no, 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 and then they're going to have to go to trial. So it's up to the judge. All eyes should be on this judge in the U.S. District Court in Los Angeles. This is Let the Record.
I know we're up against a hard break, but how does that compart with the prosecutor's manual that says that except in the most unusual circumstances?
Oh, you're right.
How is this?
You're right.
We have to watch the special prosecutor. We have to watch the Department of Justice and the judge at the same time.
I agree. The fact of the matter is, you're absolutely right. But you can see now that if the Justice Department, through the U.S. Attorney's Office, will recommend that this plea be accepted and ratified by the court, that they're in the bag out in Los Angeles. To answer your question on that, the question is, will the judge hold them accountable the way the judge in Delaware, and the last time they tried to fix a case in a federal court, as you recall, and which led to this whole prosecution now, because they wouldn't go into the tank on that. The judge was terrific, and she should be blessed for doing the right thing. So this is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, Curtis Sliwa, the legendary leader of the Guardian Angels, as well as #1 broadcaster here on WABC AM. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us for more interesting conversation. We'll be back in a moment.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
This shrimp and coconut sauce is divine. What's your secret?
Goya coconut milk.
How does it taste so good?
It's all in that real coconut flavor and that rich, creamy texture.
What about thickeners and added sugars?
None. Just smooth, coconutty goodness.
What can I make with it?
From curries to sweet treats like coconut flan, the possibilities are endless.
Goya coconut milk. Take your cooking to the next level. No question about it. Find it in the Goya section of your local grocery store. If it's Goya, it has to be good.
Janine Pirro here with an urgent warning. While we celebrate Trump's historic win, inflation continues to drain your IRA and 401k. And China is now targeting your money with a kill shot on the dollar. That's why thousands of Americans are shielding their savings with gold and contacting the experts at Colonial Metals Group. For a free 2024 gold guide that explains everything, go to freegoldguide.com/Pirro, Pirro, or call 800-965-8004. Don't let America's enemies ruin this victory and steal your retirement money. The experts at Colonial Metals Group are the only folks that I trust to bulletproof your wealth in gold. Go to freegoldguide.com/Pirro or call 800-965-8004. 800-965-8004 for a free 2024 gold guide to learn how you can protect your life's work and if you can qualify for a free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver now. freegoldguide.com/Pirro.
Roger Stone here for Colonial Metals Group. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Go to freegoldguide.com/stone or call 800-747-6589 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold, and it's 100% tax-free.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We are back on Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party and Curtis Sliwa of WABC AM. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, another breaking news as we enter the studio today, gentlemen. The chief spokesperson for the United States Attorney's Office, the Southern District of New York, the single most prestigious U.S. Attorney's Office in the entire country, was caught on a secret tape and camera saying as follows, that the cases brought against Donald Trump, the Bragg case and the Tish James case, as well as the case in Georgia by Fannie Willis, all those cases are politically motivated. They're scams. They're nonsense. They never should have been brought. It's lawfare against the former president. Curtis, your thoughts?
Well, when a beautiful girl comes up to you in a bar and you try to impress a beautiful girl by first offering to buy her a drink and then proving your degree of achievement in the job that you have. And
I mean that you're a player. You're trying to impress her that you're a player.
Right. But obviously the woman who had approached him must have gotten into a legal discussion, a political discussion for him to have been bragging in that way. But it is interesting because we know Alvin Bragg had served in the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District. His specialty was public integrity, those kind of cases. So this gentleman knew him well, you know, on a personal level and a professional level. So he was really taken aback by why he would go after Trump and said it was basically he wants to run for higher office. He views this as a road to higher office, you know, possibly the governorship, possibly another position. But the point is it's good that he got this out of his soul and share this with all of us so we can really see.
Yeah, he's got it out of his soul, except now he's apologizing.
Well, apologizing, but I wonder, Judge, what would you do? You are, as you mentioned, Damian Williams is the top prosecutor in the United States, and he's a headhunter. I mean, the last guy he took out was Bobby Menendez, 16 charges, 16 guilty charges. Do you dismiss this guy? Do you encourage him to retire? This is embarrassing for the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District. How would you handle that, in fact, if you were his boss?
He'd be gone. He would absolutely positively be gone because it shows he doesn't understand the rules of the game, the ethical constraints. When he speaks, he's not just speaking for himself as a personal capacity just because he's trying to hit on this woman at the bar. He's speaking because he has this other major role in the legal community as a spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office. He has to be gone. He has no credibility. And for him to now say, I apologize, never should have said that, doesn't mean that the fact he's apologizing because he got caught, not because he was wrong in what he said. Jesse, your thoughts?
Well, I think the other individual that got caught is Alvin Bragg. This is someone who's known him for 15 years, has served with him, as Curtis said, in the SDNY, the Southern District of New York, knows him well. And he himself confirmed, unvarnished, without constraints, that Bragg was stacking charges against Trump and rearranging things just to make it fit a case. This confirms that one line in this, whether you're trying to impress a woman or not, this is somebody who uses some fact to try and impress a woman. But this is fact. It comes from his mouth. He knows Alvin Bragg. They've worked together for a long period of time. He's one of his closest confidants. He knows what this is all about. This is about being the mayor of New York and not being fair and transparent or bringing justice to true crimes. So this truly validates what Donald Trump has been saying, his counsels have been saying, his supporters have been saying, and what people who were watching this case were saying as it was being brought, that it never should have been brought, that the FEC did not bring it, the feds did not bring it. This confirms what everyone always thought. It was lawfare at its finest. It was in conjunction with a compromised Department of Justice, where the number 3
all of a sudden, he takes a lower-level job in the DA's office in Manhattan.
In this case,
the number 3 guy of justice comes to Manhattan as an assistant DA. Give me a break.
Two politicians, two corrupt politicians, the president and Alvin Bragg, coming together to go after a mutual enemy to get mutual benefit. The Biden would have tarnished Donald Trump and maybe not make him an opponent in 2024. And Alvin Bragg as his friend said, no one knew him before this case. Now everyone knows him. That it would pave the way for him to become the mayor of New York.
Well, that's a very good segue.
This is what we've been railing about. The lawfare, the weaponization of the Department of Justice, the weaponization of our prosecutors. This is the George Soros way of prosecutions and law and enacting the law or prosecuting the law in his version of the United States. You hit my political enemies and you let my friends go free.
Well, let me point out, that's a great segue, Jesse and Curtis. So let me just tell you this. Guess what's coming up, I think, on the 18th of September? The sentencing hearing before Judge Mershon in the Bragg case. Now, let's step back. The Supreme Court of the United States has made it perfectly clear that it's unconstitutional to use official acts against somebody because there's immunity on that. And yet evidence was put in by Bragg, allowed by Judge Mershon, that have evidence of communications with the Justice Department and other official acts. And they use that against Trump in Bragg's case. So that means that there should have been a decision on whether there's immunity and was these comments part of the official duties or not. They never did a hearing on that. There was never a decision on that by Mershon. This trial never should have gone forward and it should have been stopped dead in its tracks. And certainly the sentencing should be stopped dead in its tracks now. Now, I raise this question to you, gentlemen. Why would Mershon be rushing to sentence Donald Trump on the 18th, having not resolved the immunity decision? Maybe he'll resolve it a couple of days before on the 16th, as he's scheduled something for a hearing. But the point is he's trying to give little time for Trump to go in and to get a stay or to file an appeal. That's what the game is about. And why is Mershon doing this? Because he wants to give an arrow to the Democratic Party. Because remember, he made contributions to Biden-Harris. Remember, his daughter makes money off of Biden-Harris and the Democratic Party. He should have recused himself from the very, very beginning. It's a violation of state ethics laws for judges for him to have proceeded and presided in this case. But yet he's rushing to sentence. Why? So that Harris can go out there in a campaign trial and his surrogates and the favorable media can say what? He's a convicted criminal who's been sentenced to so many years in jail. That's why. It's a political dodge. It's a political attempt to get around Trump's legal rights. Curtis.
Well, it's our only hope, other than the abortion issue, because we've already had a little taste of what may be occurring in the debate on September 10th, in which he will tell America, because America knows very little about Vice President Harris. We knew a lot about Hillary when she ran. People had already come to their decisions about Hillary. We lived with Hillary. Nobody really knows about Harris. Harris will reintroduce herself to the American public. I was a prosecutor in San Francisco County. I was the highest law enforcement elected official in California, Attorney General. I put people like you, Donald Trump, in jail. You are a convicted felon, and she's going to try to ride that to victory. So any way that Judge Mershon can aid and abet that, he's going to do it because it helps her position to be able to keep that as a priority issue against the prevailing issues, which the average Joe and Sally in America have said. It's the economy, it's inflation, it's the migrant issue. That's 1, 2, 3. Abortion is 4. But that helps the prosecutor in Vice President Harris. And remember, that is on her resume. You can't take that away from her. So she's going to try to ride that all the way to the White House. And I think if you don't have many cards in the deck, and that's a powerful card, you play that to the max. And it's all about how Donald Trump now responds. Does he flick this off like dandruff and just say, it's part of their attempt to take me down? Or does he then personalize it by attacking Mershon, by attacking Bragg, and obviously using this against Vice President Harris? This is where he's going to have to show the kind of discipline he's never shown before. Ignore it. It's not going to affect any votes. Don't get drawn into this personal shouting match with people who are all minorities. Remember, they're all minorities. You don't want to do that, Donald Trump. keep in horse racing. You notice how the thoroughbreds have the blinders when they turn the 3/4 point, and they try to run to the finish line. That's so that they don't get spoofed by the crowd, so that they run to victory. And I think that's what really Donald Trump needs. He needs to put on blinders and forget all this. There's nothing he could do to change the outcome of this now. Nothing other than get elected, and it all goes away.
Jesse, your thoughts?
Absolutely. And the blinders suggestion is exactly, it's perfect. Because as I've told candidates throughout my career, there's one person in the audience you're talking to. And for Donald Trump, it's those independent, unaffiliated voters in 7 states that are the battleground states of this election. That's his audience. It's not Kamala Harris. It's not the base. The base is with us. It's not her base. And it's not a game of gotcha. Well, you're right, Curtis. Prosecutors, she's got it on her resume. However, and in Suffolk, we've demonstrated this. We ran against Tim Sinney, a prosecutor. We ran against a former federal attorney from the Department of Justice, David Colon. But prosecutors in those cases come records. And I believe that the abysmal record that Harris has, just like we exposed
Jesse, you're breaking up. Jesse, you're breaking up again.
Sorry. I have not moved. Just like we have exposed the abysmal records of Tim Sinney and David Colon in a district attorney's race and a county executive race, Donald Trump needs to be disciplined. Speak to those voters in those battleground states and basically identify how she has tried with her friends in big tech, in mainstream media, try to reform herself. She was in support of cashless bail. She was in support of defunding the police. She wanted to reimagine policing as part of her platform. She supported the bail for those rioters in Minnesota. The people of America, the people of Minnesota, and those other 6 battleground states need to hear that while she has it on her resume, she failed the people in that job.
You know, Judge, both you and I, we live in Bragland, Manhattan, that elected him overwhelmingly against the Republican that I ran with as I was running for mayor, Tom Caniff. Great. He would have made a great DA.
By the way, Tom had a number of cases before me when I was in Supreme Court.
Yeah, and
excellent lawyer.
He has the Daniel Penny case coming up in October.
Oh, that's a very big deal. To our listeners, the Daniel Penny case is one of the most important cases that will ever be brought. And a case, in my humble opinion, should never have been brought. Why? Because this is a man, a former Marine, who defended the people on the subway against a vicious attacker. People in the train were petrified. He rallied to try to protect them. They were all intimidated. The law is very, very clear that you're allowed to do this. This is a case that never should have been presented to a grand jury, never should have been prosecuted, never should have been indicted, because what they've done is they've said that don't get involved. If you see an incident on the subway and somebody's about to be raped or slashed, stay out of it. It's not your business. So what's going to happen? You're going to have our fellow citizens looking the other way when our daughters and our wives are raped and cut up on subway stations. This is an important case, a case that should have been dismissed. If the judge has any gumption in this case, he or she will dismiss this case. It's a bad case. It's bad. The law is clear. You have an affirmative defense. You're perfectly allowed to defend yourself and others who are in reasonable apprehension of being injured and hurt. So that's a big case to watch.
Right, but if you're Alvin Bragg, and as the spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District, said, if your aspirations are for a higher citywide office, it's a perfect case for you because it's all about race. Black young man, Jordan Neely, killed. Daniel Penny, white Marine from Long Island, chokes him. It's not quite Bernard Goetz, but you're certainly going to get a lot of eyeballs and a lot of emotions.
Well, this is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We're joined by Curtis Sliwa, the legendary founder of the Guardian Angels and #1 broadcaster here on WABC Radio. We'll be back in a minute for our final segment of Let the Record Show.
This is Let the Record Show.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
5 immersive worlds, 1 amazing theme park. Get ready to explore the all-new Universal Epic Universe, featuring the wizarding world of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic, Super Nintendo World, How to Train Your Dragon, Isle of Berk, and Dark Universe. Epic Universe opens May 22nd at Universal Orlando Resort. Our universe will never be the same. Tickets and packages on sale now at universalorlando.com.
Lights, camera, innovation. Walt Disney Studios chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform the movie-making process. Together, we kept a remote production hub in Hawaii in sync with a team in California to bring Lilo and Stitch to theaters this summer. This is picture-perfect collaboration. This is Walt Disney Studios with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We are back on Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, with Curtis Sliwa, legendary founder of the Guardian Angels and #1 broadcaster at WABC. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Gentlemen, in this final segment, I want to talk about the remake, the reinvention, the papering over, the whitewashing of the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. There was a great article in the New York Post a number of days ago by Victor Davis Hanson, the legendary professor at Stanford, and a great mind. You see him often on cable television talking. And he's talking about this remake, gentlemen. He says they're trying to, and the name of the article is called "These 15 Rules for Radicals Will Get Far Left Kamala Harris Elected as President of the United States." That's the thesis. So I'll give you in a nutshell, and I don't want to get your thoughts, gentlemen. Fundamentally, she's always been a far left progressive. Fundamentally, she's given money to radical causes. Fundamentally, when they were rioting 4 years ago, the BLM Antifa, she gave money to criminal defendants, lawbreakers who burned down Minneapolis. By the way, a city where her running mate for vice president sat idly by while $500 million worth of damage was destroyed, while people were killed and where people were seriously injured, and people have now fled by the tens and tens of thousands from the state of Minnesota because it's not a safe place to be anymore. And Minneapolis is certainly not a safe place to be. So she's trying to remake herself. And how does she remake herself? Well, she's more moderate. She's nice. She denies she had anything to do with any of the bad decisions of the Biden administration, while at the same time saying that she was in the room and she was a major player. You have to explain how you rationalize that, gentlemen. You know, tell a compelling story about her journey and all the hardships she overcame. What hardships? Her parents were both professors. They're upper middle class people. She had a wonderful insulated life. All of a sudden, she said she worked at McDonald's. So far, there's no record of anybody showing that she ever worked at McDonald's. She wants to tell the radicals in the street, calm down, everything will be okay. Don't worry about it. Don't embarrass me. Don't cost me votes. And she's giving wink, wink to her political allies on the extreme left saying, hey, guys, forget about what I say now. Watch what I do when I get in there. I need to say what I have to say now to get myself elected, but I'll do anything that you guys need, just the way Joe Biden gave the left everything they needed. The Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren agenda gave him everything. He ran as a moderate, as a common sense guy, and he governed as a far left socialist who hurt the economy, who hurt our border, who hurt our national security, who hurt our allies, and it was not up to the job. Curtis.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned McDonald's. I was a night manager of Mickey D's, and when you train your staff, they have to learn all the stations. So she said she was the fry girl. Her only job was to stand and wait for the French fries to be ready and pop up, and then she bagged the fries. Well, she couldn't have done that at Mickey D's because the handbook from Ronald McDonald in Oak Brook, Illinois says a person must be the prep station. They have to work the grill. They have to be able to work the cashier. They have to be able to work the bin. They have to be able to work the fry station. That's number one. Now, I don't know if both you gentlemen were raised as I was, as Breitbart was, as William O'Keefe of Project Veritas was, on Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. My father was from Chicago. He was a labor leader. And he raised me on the...
One crazy leftist, Saul Alinsky.
But who got stuff done. So it worked in many, many ways. And it worked for Barack Obama. Now, Kamala Harris is no Barack Obama. Barack Obama's smooth operator. If he would have run tomorrow for the United States presidency, he'd be reelected. But it worked for Barack Obama. And because this is a sprint and not a marathon, let's face it, Barack Obama beat Hillary Rodham Clinton, no easy task, and then went on to win the presidency against John McCain, who, again, at that point, was considered a hero to the American public. Kamala Harris is not in that same league, but why wouldn't you use the same playbook? And that playbook worked for Barack Obama, and it could conceivably work for Kamala Harris because nobody knows her. We know her. But the average person in America, they're being introduced to her for the first time. She's got that Barack Obama smile. She waves. She's friendly. She's engaging.
The politics of joy.
Right. But it's totally opposite Donald Trump and Vance. So if you're going to run a campaign, run completely opposite your competition. The scarecrow coach, you know, the governor of Minnesota, he waves, he smiles. So, look. They don't have many options. This is their only option, and I feel they are following in those patterns, in the pathway of the Rules for Radicals, and they're going to either live by it in the electoral process or die by it. But they don't really have many options, to be honest with you, Judge.
Jesse, your thoughts?
You know, this is the same playbook. I remember when President Barack Obama met with then Russian President Dmitry Medvedev and was caught on a hot mic saying, I got to say a couple of things, but after a re-election in 2012, you know, my hands won't be cuffed anymore. And that's basically what they're doing here. I mean, part of this outstanding story by who's a fellow at the Center of American Greatness and a former professor at Stanford, as you pointed out, they're running the same campaign. In fact, it recommends follow the 2020 successful Biden basement strategy, keep out of the public eye, silent on the issues, reliant on 70% of the ballots not being cast on Election Day, and outsourcing the campaign to the fusion media and the billionaire class. That's exactly what has been going on, and that's exactly what Democrats have been going on from the Obama administrations to Biden and now to Kamala Harris. They are going to try and remake her. However, in her zest for power and to work up the line of political power, there's enough language there, enough from her mouth directly that she can be picked apart. And what I like about this, and you know, a few days after we air this show, the debate will be on for millions of people to see, is that she's not going to be able to run away from that record. And what I like is that Donald Trump, in a month, has done about 35 interviews. Maybe during those interviews, he's been working out his language, maybe working out his thought process. Kamala Harris hasn't. And it'll be interesting that even if the moderators, who in the CNN debate, I think I projected, had to be fair, had to be tough on both candidates for the integrity of their business. I think ABC is going to be in the same position, especially with all the personal relationships that are there between the Harris family and the owners of ABC. They're going to have to be tough. They're going to have to demonstrate some strength and take on Kamala Harris.
Well,
she's not going to be prepared for that. The platitudes and the 60,000 foot broad statements are not going to make it. Now, Donald Trump is disciplined and takes her apart policy by policy, which he has been doing leading up to this debate. It'll be a very successful night for him.
Well, let me share the following with you, gentlemen. The other day on Katz and Cosby, we had Bill O'Reilly on the show, and he said that he was skeptical about these moderators asking the tough questions to Kamala Harris. So what he said was, listen, if they don't ask the question, Donald Trump should say very clearly, why don't you ask Kamala Harris about the open border and choose the borders are? Why don't you ask Kamala Harris what her position is on reparations? Why don't you ask Kamala Harris about lawlessness in the streets and how you gave money to these people who were rioting in the cities across the country 4 years ago? Point after point. In other words, keep doing it, pressuring the moderators to do it. And either he'll succeed in getting them to ask the question, or at least Trump will get to raise those issues directly and to show the American people in the debate that these people are blindsiding America. They're trying to gaslight it, that she doesn't have a record. She does have a record. It's a far left record, and it has to be confronted. And according to Bill O'Reilly, who's a very smart guy, as we all know, that's the way to do it. Curtis, what do you think?
It is ironic that Trump wanted that debate before the start of summer. Biden wanted that debate because he wanted to prove to his fellow Democrats he can handle it. Imagine what would have happened if they didn't have the debate then.
It would have been Biden versus Trump.
Right.
Because the Democratic Party would have hidden it.
Well, of course, because you wouldn't have had enough to take out Joe Biden at that point. So even though this proved very fortuitous for Donald Trump, because he thought he was on his way to a coronation at that point, remember, it was over. It was slam dunk.
Absolutely.
It also
the worst thing he ever did was do that debate.
Right, but it opened up the door so that George Clooney could get the green light from Barack Obama, write the op-ed piece. I love you, George, like Nancy Pelosi. We love you, but you got to go. You got to go.
We love you, and we're sorry we have to stab you in the back 17 times.
An attempted assassination attempt on Trump, and it's still neck and neck.
This is pretty awful, isn't it?
Yeah, but think about it. It gets down to people who have yet to make up their mind. Democrats know who they're going to vote for the most part. Republicans do. Men are breaking for Trump. It's now a question. The independent women. In 2016, they broke unexpectedly for Trump against Hillary. She got in that fetal position at the Jacob Javits Convention Center. It took them 10 days to get her off the floor. What? They broke for Trump? And in 2020, they broke for Biden. If Trump can get a few more of those women, he's the next president. But it's all about women and independent voters. And he's got to be more female-friendly. Taking on Harris as the vice president, I think, was a mistake. Not Harris, Vance. Taking him on was a mistake because he thought he was on his way to victory. Could have chosen much better candidates for his vice presidency.
Well, listen, I won't comment on Vance, who I think is a very well-qualified guy and very smart. I would have chosen somebody else if I was in that room recommending.
May I make one suggestion,
Sure.
though? In the sprint at the end, the Democrats have been very good to get their families up on the stage. Obviously, Harris, her husband, the coach, his wife. We got to see Melania up there, and we have to get Vance to get his wife, who's brilliant. She's a practicing Hindu, an Indian. Get her out on the stage with them in that final month. You got to appeal to women. We never see their women folk. It's too male-centric. It could be the difference between winning and losing.
I agree with that. Jesse?
I think everything's on the table. I think that what Curtis said and what you said are point blank, and they're right. I think it's going to come down, as I said, to 5 to 7 states and the appeal to those independent, unaffiliated voters. There isn't a bit of a gender gap, not as much. But what I think we all need to take into account here is that a lot of public pollsters, ones that go on CNN and MSNBC, and even some of the Fox News, they say, oh, my God, look, the intensity among the Democrats has risen from Biden, and Harris has jumped it up to whatever number it may be. Maybe it gained 15 points and such on. The problem is, so they call it as a problem, but the problem is the intensity and the excitement on the Republican side has not waned. We have not seen a reduction of that. We've actually seen a little bit of an uptick in some of our states. So that's a misnomer. Anybody after Joe Biden was going to be getting a boost. I will tell you, I thought it was classic. We discussed it last week with Eric Levine, that in one fell swoop, whatever you may think of RFK or his policies, by cutting out on Friday, the day after the Democratic acceptance by Kamala Harris, it sucked the media attention away from Kamala Harris and focused it again immediately on Trump and the idea of going to a broader audience and such, whether you agree with that audience or not. But again, it shows growth. This is what needs to be done. And as we've said it here, all of us have said it, and we've said it for when Donald Trump sticks to his message, when he sticks to the facts, when he sticks to comparing his record to the Harris-Biden record, it is a no-brainer. And I believe that he is doing the right thing leading up to this debate by speaking about policy. Just at the taping of this show, he was at the New York Economic Club on his economic plan. He wasn't hiding in a basement. He wasn't making a 4-minute speech. He wasn't hiding with The View or with Dana Bush. He was there answering questions. And I think that's what's going to better prepare him than Kamala Harris for this debate. Because, as you both pointed out, if the moderators are placing their thumbs on the scale, Donald Trump, in an artful, tactful way, must bring forward the record, and the same way is about asking those questions and reminding her of her record on the economy, inflation, cashless bail, the influx of illegal migrants, the fact that she was in the room during the most disastrous withdrawal in American history in Afghanistan, and also presided over 11 million illegal migrants being placed, crossing the border and invading our communities.
Well, let me give a final thought, because we have to sign off now. I think, and we suggested this on this show, Jesse, I've been saying very strongly that Trump has a very strong bench. He has very good spokespeople. And I've been saying send surrogates into the swing states. People like Governor Youngkin, people like Governor Burkham, people like Senator Cotton. Send those people in and talk about the record, the difference between the Trump years and the Biden-Harris years.
You left one out. Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley.
And maybe the most important one of all, Curtis, you're absolutely correct. Because if she was the vice presidential candidate, Trump would be in a slam dunk.
Easily.
This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party, the legendary Curtis Sliwa of Guardian Angel fame and #1 broadcaster here at WABC. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We hope you've enjoyed this week's show. God bless you and God bless America.
This is Let the Record Show.